Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Binford Chronicles. If you're visiting for the first time, welcome to the show. And I'm Joanne Binford. We have Tessa Toman coming on. You just got a sneak peek at her there. I wanted to start the show today um, saying a small little prayer for all of us. And I want to start by saying thank you, Lord, for all the people in my life, my friends, family, spouse, coworkers, and business partners. You know, guys, I've been truly blessed, and I want to take this moment to remember that even in the darkest moments of our lives, the Lord has always carried the weight of our pain. And because of that, He guides us through those difficult times. Because of His guidance through those difficult times, we're able to get through it. And we've been able to persevere and battle through those times and eventually see the light. So let's all think for that moment and just thank the Lord, that He is here. Even when we don't feel like He's there because we're having a tough time, He's always there. We just have to let Him in, let Him carry us, and get us through it, because love is always there, and our friends are there, our families there, our partners are there. And I hope that you had a great, beautiful 2025 like I did, and amen to that. I've been working with my partners at Indian River Connections for over 2 years now, and it's been a spiritual awakening. It's been a business endeavor that has gotten better with time, and we put it together, Indian River Connections, because we wanted to connect to our community. We felt like our community needed somebody to reach out to them, and that's why we put that together. And Binford Chronicles came along because I wanted to touch on the topics that our community wasn't talking about, and also bringing the candidates and people to the front lines so that we can get that information to you. Because remember, we're in a spiritual war. It's not just political, it's driven by good and evil. So, the future of our America born children, my daughter, your daughters, our grandchildren, their liberties are at stake. And Charlie Kirk saw that. He saw it coming. He saw it in high school. He saw the changes that needed to be made. And he created TPUSA because civil dialogue was lost. Truth in America's history wasn't being taught. And a whole generation of Americans, our children, their children, his generation, was losing its focus on what the American dream is. And he speaks about it. It's relationship with God. It's the ability to earn a good living, to buy a home, to get married, to have kids, the family unity, to keep building family and not having all these divorces and out of wed children, to make the family number one. When you have a strong family, you have strong children, you have a strong country. And the ability to do that has been lost. It's been lost through generations. So Charlie made it cool also for college students to be able to come out of their shell and say, I am Christian and I am proud and I am conservative. He brought that back, and that was so important for this generation. And now we have TPUSA gaining traction in high schools and middle schools. So that's why Tess Toman is our guest today. She's a high school student who serves as president of the Treasure Coast Activism Hub for Turning Point USA's Club America chapter. Tessa is part of a rising generation that gives real hope for America's future, a generation committed to faith, freedom, and the constitutional republic built on Judeo Christian values. You're going to love hearing from her. So stick around. We'll be right back with Tessa Toman after this short break. Hey Tessa, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am doing really well. I'm really glad to have you on the show today. You know, your generation has got a lot on their shoulders.
I agree. We have some big things to make happen, and I'm excited to see God move in our generation.
Yeah, so Tessa, not a lot of people know you, but we want them to know you, especially here on the Treasure Coast. And you have a really special story to tell about yourself. Why don't you share that with us today?
So, my name is Tessa Toman. I really began public speaking and engaging with politics when I was around 13. I helped try to push the Human Life Protection Amendment for the 2024 election, and I helped petition with that. And so I've done a whole lot of pro life work a lot of my life. I still do a lot of pro life work, and I love that ministry. And then stepping into college and high school, I'm dual enrolled right now. And I realized how many people really needed to be civically engaged, even if you are not of voting age yet. And so Turning Point USA really gave me that outlet along with several organizations. I'm a part of like For Liberty and Justice, Sanctuary for Life, all of those wonderful people. And it just really gave me the opportunity to do what I felt the Lord was calling me to do and encourage others of my age bracket and older and younger take that mantle up and be able to really pursue that calling that God has for us and what we have to do as Christians and be civically engaged and wake up the church.
A lot of people don't even think about young people your age being civically engaged or really wanting to entertain the idea. What kind of, feedback are you getting? Is it really exciting to hear how these kids are interested just to know more about their country and how they can do better civically?
Yes, it's so wonderful. After Charlie's assassination, we saw complete uptick in our like membership. I remember our very first meeting we had back in April. No one knew what Turning Point was, and I was begging people to come. And we had one member our very first meeting. We had one person that wasn't on our board attend, and then after that, we garnered more traction. And in August and September, we had an uptick, and we have over like probably 30 consistent members now. For our faith meetings we have around 50, so God's really been blessing us, and I'm so thrilled to see the revival that's taking place, and not only for the conservative sphere but especially so the Christian sphere, because I think Christian values in politics are so needed. You can't just be pro-America, you have to be pro-America with Christian values, in my opinion. That's the only way America is going to continue to improve and get better and be restored back to what the founders intended.
Yeah, and it's really great that you shared that, your first experience was one person showed up because there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders there, and you still have to deliver that message even if it's one person, two people, 50 people, 100 people, and you just have to have that drive and it's paying off because you spoke to that one person, they spoke to another person, and you're really spreading a really good message. How was it to like you really took a shift because you were a 4-H member,
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to be a butcher. For those of you who didn't know, that's why I'm going to school for project management right now. I wanted to be a butcher. I really felt that's where the Lord was calling me. I do a program at the University of Florida in 4-H where I raise, slaughter, and butcher a pig myself through the hog and ham program. And I just always loved agriculture. I wanted to be a veterinarian before that, so I really have made a transition, right? I've grown gradually. But the Lord really shifted my sights. I've always wanted to be involved in politics one way or another, whether it was journalism while being a butcher or just even petitioning, just encouraging others to be civically engaged and just politically minded of what is going on and being informed. I always thought that was so important because even now, and like I've noticed this more and more with like conspiracies and whatnot. A whole lot of people don't really do the research and they aren't necessarily informed. And that's what I really appreciate about Turning Point USA is that they provide unbiased information and they're nonpartisan. So they really let you see both sides of the aisle. And I've always appreciated that. I love debate. I did debate for several years, and I've always appreciated the amount of wisdom you're able to gain by looking at things from two different perspectives. And I think it either one reinforces your perspective, or two, you get to reestablish it entirely. And both of those are amazing privileges. And so I think through Turning Point, a lot of our members have been able to do that. They've been able to either reestablish or reinforce and be able to combat like others and challenge them on their own belief systems. So I think that's so priceless.
Yeah, that is such a good point because I think that's what Charlie Kirk was really trying to teach everybody when he went to the college campuses. You look at both sides and you can compare and you can contrast, and then you're understanding both sides. So those points that you're arguing, you understand them better and you can deliver that message better. And the research is so important. And that was one thing that Charlie said. He said, I had to learn about the other side
Yep,
as well. So and it gives you an understanding of where their thinking is coming from. And so you can argue those points because you've studied it. And that is just such an important lesson for our youth because it is getting very difficult in a world where everything is so driven by emotion, right? Everything's driven
100%.
by emotion and no thought on what the reality and truth of it is. And it's deteriorating pretty much dialogue. And to the point where it's taking the emotion to the extent of assassinating people over dialogue. We used to have a saying when we were kids, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me.
Exactly.
And here
Exactly.
we're in what, 2025, where we should be the most advanced country and most advanced civilization as ever, and it feels like we're going back in time. We're falling behind, and this is such an important task that you have because you've got a whole generation that you've got to turn around.
Right. Right.
And a message for all those kids that have been silent because they're afraid of the pushback because of the emotion, right? Because even in high school, kids get emotionally charged. And we've got to stop that so that they can start thinking constructively and bring
Exactly.
back religion. We are a Judeo-Christian nation,
Right.
and family nation, and we seem to be losing that, don't we?
100%. I was just talking with someone the other day about it, and I said it really is because we began subsidizing all of these things that are not Christian. We subsidize single motherhood, or we subsidize partners who are not together, and and we subsidize abortion. All of these different things that are not Christian by any means, and we began compensating that and agreeing with it and promoting it as flourishing, and it really isn't. That's not what God intended. And if those circumstances happen, that is terrible. And that's not what God intended. And that's why we as a church need to take up that mantle and lift those people up that are in those situations and encourage them to take proactive steps and engage with what God wants them to do. And
Mhm.
I just think the church really needs to wake up and needs to begin to take on the role that government has taken the role of instead. And so I am for big church and small gov, just as Charlie was and Turning Point has as well. And I just think that's so important. And a lot of people miss it. They just think that we need more government right now. I think we're seeing that with a lot of socialists that are now taking office. But it's really important to look at the history, and the church was doing all of the things that government is now doing. And we need to go back to the church actually doing what the church is supposed to do, and the government doing what the government is supposed to do, and not more than that.
Yeah, because once government takes control, they're not at the people's level anymore. It's all of our tax money going to them. They're living with, for example, they have security guards. They live in mansions. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
And
it's disproportionate, right?
yeah,
It's not on the same level.
they start out like you and I, and then all of a sudden they've got all this information and they're making trade money and they're in there for a lifetime. And how could they possibly know what it's like to have boots on the ground like we do, go to the store, go shopping, or clean or go work all week, study at school at night, and come home and clean the house where they have all of this stuff is paid for them. No longer are they just working for the American citizen. They're working for the benefit of themselves now. And
Exactly.
we've lost our nation pretty much. It's very scary what's going on. Right. I think when Charlie Kirk was talking about, warning us about the Islamification of America and other countries, I think he was right, because we're kind of seeing that in Minneapolis and New York, where Mandami took control. Right now, they're having, all of a sudden, they're having the call of prayer 5 times a day in Brooklyn. And
Mhm.
that's not freedom of religion anymore, when a religion is, or what they call a religion. I don't see that as a religion, but they're doing that amongst Catholics and Jews and Baptists and Protestants. You can't walk down that street anymore and feel your Christianity, because it's being overtaken by some other uh prayer, some other nation, some other culture, and I don't want to be harsh, but to me, a religion is not a religion that you should fear. It should be love, it should be compassion, it should be helping. If it's something that controls every aspect of your life, your thought, your clothing, your hair, how you breathe, and when it gets to that point, it's a cult.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's going to harm you for not being part of that religion, it's not a religion, because God and Jesus
exactly.
are calling you, but they're not forcing you, and
Mhm.
they're not going to hurt you because you decide to not follow Jesus Christ, the road of God and heaven, and he's going to let you go to hell if that's where you want to go.
Exactly. It's about conviction, right? And I think that's important. And God gives us free will, and that's important. He allows us to make our own decisions. And at the end of the day, I think that's the foundation of this gospel, right? He gives us free will, and we, as Christians, choose Jesus and choose his salvation, and to walk in goodness and walk in truth and walk in what he wants us and intends us to. And so I think, talking about that, Christianity and Islam are not in the least comparable whatsoever, contrary to popular belief in what a lot of the rhetoric I'm seeing right now. It is not comparable whatsoever. When you begin to dive into the Quran, Apostate Prophet, he spoke at the Student Action Summit. He did an amazing job. He was one of my favorite speakers. And he used to be a Muslim, and he recently converted to Christianity, and he dove into that. So I highly recommend watching him. He does an amazing job, and he talks about it theologically way more in depth, and has so much more knowledge and wisdom than I do about the topic. But once you dive into the Quran and you really see what they believe and what ideologies they push, you will begin to see that it totally opposes the foundation of America. And why is that? That's because America was founded on Christianity and biblical principles and values. And that's so important to see, because America, you have freedom of religion, and that is what's beautiful and why I love America. And I think that's so wonderful to have, especially as a Christian nation. But I think that as soon as a religion begins to verge on extremism, especially we're seeing that more and more with Islam and other religions as well. I'm not going to just single them out, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that that's the one that we're directly seeing the results of
Mhm.
consistently, is Islam. I think it's so important to promptly take action against that constitutionally, because the Constitution does not permit religions that infringe on others' rights and violate other civilians, Americans' rights. And so I think that needs to be dealt with accordingly. But I have Muslim friends. I know that there are many Muslims that are not extremists, but when you really go into the religion, it is not in any way comparable to Christianity, and is not in any way um, going to mesh with American values. And I think that's really important to look at its core. And that is why I pray that all of the people that I know that are Muslims, or any other religion for that matter, become Christians and really see that, because there's no other way you're going to see eye to eye, especially in a nation like ours, unless we are a Christian nation. And I can hope for that, but we have free will. And so, that's really what I have to say on it. William Federer, we're actually going to have him at one of the Treasure Coast Club America Turning Point Faith meetings, and so I'm really excited about that. But he has a book. My mom actually got this at the Turning Point Educator Summit, and it's what every American needs to know about the Quran. And I'm only a few pages in, but it is so amazing. He is such great historian. I respect him immensely, and so I would really recommend watching his stuff on that. um, I think watching more and more of the people that either have dove into the Quran and what Islam actually entails, or people that have left the religion itself. I think that is what's really important, and to look at those testimonies and see the contrast of what's happening now. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but I've definitely seen them. And it's been over the past couple of years. It's not a recent thing just because of Mom Donnie, but there's been several things, one of which was in Florida. I'll have to find and send it to you. But there's a Muslim conference, and this Muslim got up on the stage and said, we need to get into local government and we need to take that over. And that's why I'm a huge, huge advocate for local government being paid attention to, right? And actually
Mhm. Yeah.
voting and knowing and seeing who's in office in your county, and you, the people, taking advantage of that and
Mhm.
advantage of your civil duties, and voting the people you want in, and voting the people out, and preventing the people that you don't want to get in. And so I think that's so important, because a lot of us, and I think a lot of Americans, either don't aren't civically engaged at all, don't vote, or they just pay attention to national politics. But I've gone more and more involved at a local level because I hope to run for local office eventually. And it is
Mhm.
so important to pay attention to those that are in local office right now. And that really controls your lives. You want to say that the president controls your life, but in reality, it's the local politics and the state politics that does. Because the state really has just as much authority, the governor has just as much authority as the president, honestly, when it comes to your state, if you
Mhm.
really dive into it and look at the technicalities there. So I think it's important to know your politician knows who's in office and what they really stand for, and who is financially supporting them. That's another important thing. Where are they getting their money from? Who do they owe things from, like to? That's really important. So just do your research and know who's in those circles.
Yeah, it's really important because politics do affect our lives. A lot of people say, I don't want to talk about top politics. I don't like politics. Well, it's, hey, the next time you complain about something, that's politics you're complaining
Yeah.
about, because it starts locally, like you said. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't do their research. They just either pick who their friends picking, but they don't do their own research. It's too much research. And it really is a lot of research, because you have to go look them up. You have to see their future, and then you have to follow them when they're in office and make sure they're doing the things that they said they're going to do. And that's the fact that we have given up our country to the representatives is why we're here today. And it was Charlie Kirk who really got me interested in reading the Quran, because like you, I've been reading the Quran and also Sunni, because what I've learned is the Quran and Sunni are both the laws that they follow. And when I've been reading
Go hand in
The Sunni
hand.
talks a lot about women and what women do. It talks about their menstruation. It talks about their clothing. It talks about how they're supposed to behave, and it goes in detail. And I'm like, oh my goodness, all these American women that are not seeing the hardcore part of this governance, and they're not
Yeah.
going to see it yet, because what we're experiencing right now is called jihad by the ballot.
Yes.
If you've ever
Mm-hmm.
followed Brigitte Gabrielle, she
Okay.
explains a lot of it. And the plan is, because they've been here so long, a lot of them came over 30 years ago, so they've been raising children, and they're about your age now and a little bit older, so they're like, Mandabi wasn't raised here. He's only been here like 7 or 8 years, but they raise them to start going for those local seats, your school board,
Exactly.
yeah, just like
Exactly.
they did in New York. And now you have to have like halal food, and you can't do certain things. They can have, like, our public schools in certain states, we're not allowed to have religion in them, but you
Yep.
can have Islam in them, so
Mhm.
they start taking over, and that's jihad by the ballot. So it's jihad is when they're fighting, and they're trying to get what they want, which is to have the whole entire world be Muslim, not Muslim. I'm going to say Islamic Islam, because like you said, you have the Muslims that have lived here for years that have left because they're not radical. And then you have Islam, which is the Islam Brotherhood, and
Yeah.
then that turns into a caliphate. And when it turns into a caliphate, we're in big trouble. And we
Yeah.
can see, and they used to say, I remember Brigitte Gabrielle used to say, when they reached 10%, that's the danger zone. And that's not been proven because Dearborn, Michigan's only at 3%, New Jersey's at 3%. And you can see what's already happened there. And then New York has over a million Muslims, and they're not quite at 3%, and what's going on there. So what's happened is we've uneducated the younger generation to love America and to be independent and to want to be an entrepreneur and use that against us so that everybody says, well, we're going to it's all the rich's fault that I'm poor, and that's
Right.
really not the case. So when he went and said, like, for example, Mandami said that he was going to have free transportation, but people are not educated on what locally happens and who's in charge of what local governance is, that they believed him, but he had no power over transportation the whole time.
Right, right. It's misinformation and I think deception, and that's not uncommon for politics, right? So
Hmm.
I really think on both sides of the spectrum as well, red and blue, there's a lot of corruption, and I see this especially within the pro-life arena because Seth Gruber, he's a really amazing man. He's very similar to Charlie. He has the white rose resistance, and it's so important to look at both sides when it comes to different things because a lot of them will say they oppose it, but in reality, they're career politicians. They're going to continue to make lukewarm legislation and takes to appease the majority and appease those who are going to continue to vote them in office. But in reality, they don't actually want to either abolish abortion or do things when it
Hmm.
comes to property taxes or all of these different issues that are near and dear to people's hearts. They don't actually want to make big political moves and stances because that's not going to get them reelected. And
Right.
I don't want people like that. I don't want to be a person like that. I'd be blessed if I continue to get reelected. That's what I hope for. But you need to make bold stances and to bold claims in order to get things done. And you can't be lukewarm and you can't be a career politician. You're not meant to be a politician forever, right? And I
Exactly.
think that's extremely important to know.
All right, Tessa, let's take a break and then we'll be right back. So stick around,
Perfect.
folks. We'll be right back. Oh, sorry. Wrong one. I thought I had a commercial there. So let's play your commercial again because I want people to see that. All right, welcome back. We've got Tessa Toman with us today from TPUSA. If you're just joining us, this has been a great conversation. Tessa, I wanted to move on because I know you are pro life, and tell me about that. Because during Biden's administration, we had pro lifers just praying outside of abortion clinics, and they got time in jail. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
incredible. So, how important is this issue to you?
It is so important. As I mentioned previously, I tried to help get the Human Life Protection Amendment on the ballot for the 2024 election for Florida. And we were only short by, I want to say, a couple 100,000 signatures. And that was really like hard because as you know, the abortion alternative was able to get on the ballot. And that's because people just wanted to sign for that in comparison to ours. But thankfully that didn't get passed, and I'm so thankful for that. But after that, I continued to petition for the human, not the human life, the Sanctuary for Life, petitioning for St. Lucie County. We're doing right now to raise awareness that we have two operating abortion chambers, one of which is Planned Parenthood, which does not directly prescribe abortion pills, but instead refer them to a abortion chamber down in Palm Beach. And then we have another one on 12th and Delaware in Fort Pierce. And I sidewalk counsel almost every Saturday. And I try to offer other options to women because it's so incredibly important to me. My mom was told to abort me because they falsely told her I had Down syndrome, as if that's a
Oh,
plausible
wow.
thing either way, but my mom said no. And it's always been close to my heart because Planned Parenthood was who she went to, and they made her feel as if she had no other options, even though she was with my dad. Everything was great. She was a Christian, she was living a good life, and they tried to pressure her into having an abortion, and that's not what she wanted, and she said no. And a lot of these women feel trapped and feel as if there's no other options, but there's so many resources. I literally have sheets upon sheets of resources in pregnancy centers and adoption centers, and people are willing to get you help. And a lot of these women don't know that. And when I go outside and sidewalk counsel and I talk to these women, it is so heart wrenching to see the amount of deception that is going on and
Mhm.
the amount of evil that is coming in opposition at the abortion chamber. They will play music over us, they will talk over us, they will curse us out. There's been so many absurd instances. They've called the police on us several times. That didn't do anything. The abortionist told me he hopes that I need an abortion because he'll give me 50% off. There's
Wow.
so many insane things that have happened there. But I am praying for those people, and I'm praying for the women that go in every week because I know the Lord has a plan and He has His hand over this.
He
And
does.
it is just so important for me to offer those other options and show them that this is not what needs to happen. And I feel like with all of the misinformation going around, I remembered I asked some of the escorts one day, and I said, "Do you know what an abortion is? Have you ever seen one?" And they said, "No, and I don't need to." And I said, "But you're pro-choice. You're the ones out here escorting women in to take the abortion pills." And they
Mhm.
said, "I don't need to see it. I don't need to know. I don't want to either." And that just really confirmed it for me that they want to live under misconceptions. They want
Mhm.
to live
Keep
under
the cloak
delusion.
on.
Yes, and I think that's what a lot of Americans want to do, and that's not what we can afford to do any longer. As you can see, the state of America, we cannot afford to be deluded or to see things in different ways or different lights. We need to see how it is and see the truth and the reality of what's going on in so many things in America. And I think that's especially true for the pro-life movement that's happening.
Yeah, and what about those pro women, women's rights, how many women that they kill in the womb
Exactly.
by doing that. And we're fortunate here in Indian River County that we don't have any. I think we used to have one here, and it's gone now. We have
That's amazing.
familiar with CareNet?
I am.
Yes, I used to
My mom went
volunteer.
to CareNet with me actually after Planned Parenthood. She went to them and they helped her. They got her set up, and I know several testimonies from CareNet.
Yeah, we have some testimonies. Well, I worked for CareNet probably, I think I want to say 3 years,
That's
and
amazing.
there were some girls there, and it's not just for everybody that has an unexpected pregnancy. We had couples
Right.
that were older, close in their 40s, that all of a sudden they had a new little bumbling baby coming along, and they just needed some help with that and some counseling,
Exactly.
and that's what CareNet does. It gives you that counseling, and it also supports new moms with their babies up until they're
Hmm.
like 3 years old, 4 years
Yeah.
old, and they have a baby store. So uh, there's options, and that's the thing is these centers don't tell these girls that there's options. Like if you're afraid of getting along with all of the responsibilities, there's people out there that will help you. I mean, CareNet is fully funded by the public, it's not a government agency.
Exactly.
It's totally funded by the people in the community that just love babies, love moms, get it. Hey, life is hard. This happened. This is God's child. Let's help you, And
Exactly.
lot of these girls are being told, well, nobody's going to help. Nobody's going to do this. It's not happening to you. It's not really a baby yet, and it's like, girls, we can be there for you. And some
Exactly.
girls don't realize that even after they've done it, it's still something you have to live with for the rest of your life.
And that's so important to
And you
acknowledge.
yeah, because you might not acknowledge that it's a baby, a human being at this time, but as you get older and more educated, you will realize it is a baby. It is a child. It is God. It is a human being that's being voided. And that's something to live with for the rest of your life, and it's hard.
100%. If you look at the statistics surrounding that, I believe it's majority of women do regret their abortions afterwards. And even talking with women, there's two that come with us and Sidewalk Council as well, one of which had an abortion at that facility, and they treated her horrendously. So terribly. Like, that is her testimony share, but they treat her terribly. And another woman had an abortion, not there, but the amount of seclusion you feel and those organizations make you feel is because they are money hungry. That there's even, like, I believe the New York Times even wrote an article on that particular abortion chamber. But there's so many other things. I'm unsure if you've seen, like, the one journalist that went undercover and they were selling aborted babies' body parts.
Oh my
They
heavens.
they make so much money off of it, and especially in Florida, they're shifting away from surgical abortions and going into the abortion pill because it's way more cost efficient since we have the 6-week ban. And we can talk all about that another time. But it's so important to really see the financial gain that is happening there, especially with Planned Parenthood, especially with all of these different organizations. Where is the money going? What is their incentive? It's not to help
Mhm.
women, and I think that's been a very much so apparent as the years have gone on and it's progressed, especially after Roe versus Wade
Yeah, and
was overturned.
I'm pretty sure they're funding some of those rallies that are out there, paying protesters to go out there and say, "My choice, my body." But
Right. Who
where was
knows?
where was that when COVID was here? My choice, my body didn't
Right?
matter.
My body, my choice. Yeah. What happened to the unborn baby? What happened to their body, their choice? Right? It's not a
Yeah, because
parasite.
it's
It's a
it's
complete new human being,
it
new
is.
DNA.
And to do surgery on it because they can with the advanced technology that they have now. If a baby has spinal bifida, they can actually go into the womb and do surgery on that baby, and they don't give the anesthesia just to the mom. They have to give separate anesthesia to the baby because that's a different human being. I think that was great. I went to one of the events at CareNet, and they actually had a doctor that had a video that presented a baby that went in under surgery while in the mother's womb. And the doctor in the video explained how he had to give anesthesia to the child and how he gave it through the umbilical cord. And it was because the child was separate from the mother. The mother's the incubator. And then after the video, oh, Tessa, I cried so much. The person that came up to speak, do you know who it was?
Was it that
It
baby?
was a grown man that was that baby.
That's amazing.
Oh my God, I get chills because I
Right?
was like, how powerful is
It's that
that?
testimony.
How powerful is that? How can you say that is not a living human being? And
Exactly.
it was just incredible. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. Everybody has to see this. So I would recommend to any girl out there or any mother, any older woman, anybody who's going through a moment like that, reach out to a facility like CareNet, and
100%.
they will help you, walk you through it, talk to you. It's just so amazing that. And then they offer all these services. You can take religious services. If you don't want to do religious services, they still will be there for you. That it doesn't matter. And you know what the other thing is that I don't think people understand about a facility like CareNet is we've had girls that have chosen to go and have their abortion, and we've told them, come see us after if you need
Post-abortion
help.
healthcare, right?
Yes,
They offer services like that. I
yes,
always mention it to those women.
we don't judge you, come we want to be there for you as well, we come see us, come talk to us if you need somebody to talk to afterwards, you know? So, and they
Exactly.
just don't understand that. And it is so needed. And I'm so glad that they are here in Indian River County. And I hope that it spreads over there to St. Lucie County.
We
And
have one here. We have one.
you
Yes,
do?
I volunteered at it before. I love it. We have
Oh,
Sue Chess as a director. She's amazing.
that
It's so
is
cool.
that is fantastic. So, Tess, this is really great that you are really putting out the fight there. And I hope that you will get a partner to come on to the show with you, somebody that you're really tying up with and that's doing all this with you because it's a lot of work for you.
It is it is so much work, but I enjoy it. I have a wonderful board. They help me so much, like planning the meetings. We just had a wonderful pro-life meeting. Actually, on the second, we had Jason Storms come down. He's a national director for Operation Save America, a pro-life organization, and he is also the lead for the Florida White Rose Resistance. And so we played the 1916 Project, a wonderful movie. I 10 out of 10 recommend it. It is about Planned Parenthood's founding actually and Margaret Sanger and that whole history, and it is so important. And a lot of the kids came up to me after and said that was so important, I didn't know any of that. And I was like, exactly. And I feel like that's so needed, the education aspect and the background and the context, especially if you're trying to be an activist in the pro-life movement, looking into what is going on and what has shaped our world into what it is today. And so we had a wonderful meeting. We had the speaker, we had the movie, and I had a table of activism, like ways to get involved, an action table, I called it. And we had baby bottles for CareNet to donate. We had all kinds of flyers and newsletters you could sign up for, um, different organizations in St. Lucie County and on the Treasure Coast, even up to Vero and down to Stewart. We had all these wonderful places. And it was so awesome to see kids from all over learn how they can get involved and want to get involved. And we had two kids join us on Saturday to go sidewalk council, and it was just amazing. And so
That is
I'm excited to
really
see more
amazing.
events like that.
I bet you those young adults were so shocked when they heard the story of Margaret Sanger, right?
I know when I saw the video, the movie for the first time like a year or two ago, I was shocked. I didn't know any of it. And it's so, so important to know, especially with her association with the eugenics council, all those people, like Hitler.
Mm,
It's really important to look at and
yeah.
think critically about abortion and how even Planned Parenthoods are established and set up in different areas, and just thinking critically about that. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, it really is. So you're doing a lot of really good work, and I love the turn that you've taken. The Lord is leading you. He's right there with you. Yeah, he's giving you the courage, the power. It's like a light behind you, just lighting you up, to spread the word, and it's making an you're going to make an impact. And you know, I would the other thing I wanted to know is that how about debate classes? Are we doing debate classes in schools yet?
I'm unsure about that. I've been homeschooled, but I did classical conversations as a co-op, and so I did debate through that, and I loved that so much. I think we did immigration, we did death penalty, we did so many other ones too, but those were my favorite. I really appreciated that because it challenged my own beliefs on the matter and got me to really think outside the box and look through different lenses and look at proactive solutions on both ends, and it was immensely beneficial. So I hope to see more debate take place. I know Ron DeSantis. I attended a press conference back in October, I believe it was, where he talked about speech and debate and trying to further that within schools. And even in Club America Turning Point, he announced that his support for it being in every high school and college campus. And if there was any opposition to any of that, it would be dealt with accordingly and swiftly. And so I really hope there's more done with that. I think they even said that I might be wrong, the national debate champions will get a Charlie Kirk award
Oh,
and a
that's pretty cool.
scholarship. And
Yeah.
so that's amazing.
We used to have a debate class here at the Indian River, the Vero Beach High School here in Indian River County, and I don't know why they got rid of it because the kids loved it, and if
Bring
you
it
have a good,
back, right?
yeah, right, and if you have a good moderator, it's like it's not emotion. It really teaches kids to get control of their emotions because it's really
100%.
hard, to not feel that emotion but it's a really good training exercise to control your emotions and have that dialogue where you're listening to somebody that you might disagree with, but then you're thinking kind of like what Charlie would do. He was thinking about everything that they were saying and then trying to see it from a like he took himself
Exactly.
outside the box and he's
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
in, you know? And that's really a good skill to give our kids. And I think that would probably tone down the violence that we see amongst each other and probably bring us closer to realizing that we do agree on a lot of things, that we are pretty much the same. And once we understand things, sometimes we can change heart, minds, and souls, right?
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. That was one of my biggest reasons for starting a turning point because I realized how severe the culture has gotten when it comes to discussion and dialogue. It has really gone downhill. And one of my biggest missions is to restore that and help kids know that it's okay to disagree and there's a way to do so respectfully. And I encourage it and I think it's so necessary because, as I said earlier, you either reinforce or reestablish. And there's been many times I've done both. And that's not a bad thing. It's not bad to be wrong. It's bad to continue in ignorance and continue to be wrong, you know? And so I think it's important to always search truth, always learn more, always be
Mm-hmm.
willing to educate yourself and look at different perspectives and lenses. Because I think ultimately, as a Christian, that's even how you're successful in spreading the gospel is by looking at different religions, as like you were saying with the Quran and looking into that. I think it's so important to really look at where they're coming from and how you can maybe better help approach them with the gospel and help them digest it better. And so I think it's so important on a multitude of levels.
Yeah, yeah. And the best way to learn about Jesus is just to give your love, just to
Yep,
share it. And there's no pressure there. It's like, look, if you fell in love with me, you fell in love with Jesus.
exactly. Live your life for
Right?
the Lord.
Because he's in every one of us. He's shining in all of us.
Yeah,
Even people that have lost touch with themselves, but that's the barrier.
yeah,
You've got to keep calling on Jesus, and you've got to keep praying, and you've got to keep a humble heart.
yeah.
So, well, Tess, thank you so much for joining us here at Binford Chronicles. We really loved
Yes.
having you. And
I love being here. Thank you so much. This was a
yeah,
wonderful interview.
this was a great conversation, and I think it was so important for you to share those views because you are the upcoming generation. This world, we're getting old. Oh gosh, our time's running out.
Don't say that. You'll live forever. Okay.
And we're still struggling right there with you guys, and we just want to leave a
Yeah.
wonderful world, a Christian world for our children,
Amen.
and to keep flourishing with our making more babies, bringing families together and keeping them together, and and
Exactly.
and leaving a world where when you graduate from school, it's going to be easier for you to find a home that you can build your family in. It's
100%.
so much for you guys to deal with. But thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to having you back.
Yes, anytime. I'm free. I say that and then I'm busy, but I got you. I'm more than thrilled to come back again.
Well, thank you, Tess. So I'm going to close out the show, Tess. I'm going to take you
Okay.
off stage. And folks, we'll be right back with a short message from Binford Chronicles. Okay. All right, guys, thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to let you know if you liked what you saw tonight, if you want to hear more about TPUSA, please put it in the comments and we'll bring, more topics like this to the front lines for you. Really love Tessa Toman. Play the video again if you didn't get a chance to write down all of her information. She could use your help. She's got a hard journey and road ahead of her, and she's doing a fabulous job. Spread the word with your kids, have them join TPUSA, and be part of the movement. This is a movement for America, for our morals, for our principles, for Christ, for family. And it's really important that we all get involved. So please visit Indian River Connections to connect with all of our other podcasters and contributors. We have this Thursday at 6 p.m. If you go to Filthies, John Karapi from uh, TGI Now, he's hosting the Conspiracy Club. Now, that club's going to be playing at Filthy's every second Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. And that's by TGI Now. Uh, Mike Bollock will be there. I'm usually there. Bring your conspiracy and get online and have a great conversation. Also, go to IndianRiverConnections.com and you'll see all of our podcasts there. And remember to like, share, and put your comments down there. Share with like minded friends. Thank you again for joining us here at Binford Chronicles, and we'll see you next Thursday.